Okay, so now that we know a lot about the axis of symmetry, we're going to go on and work on finding the vertex of the parabola. So just to review kind of what we did, we found the axis of symmetry, which is the line that goes right through the middle of your graph. The reason we find it is so we can find the center of our graph and we have an idea of where it's at, on the coordinate plane. So here's an example. You can see that the axis of symmetry is the dashed line in red right here. And it's dashed. It's drawn as a dashed line because it's not actually the function itself. It's a guide that we put on the graph to help us graph the rest of the function. So the function, the quadratic, whatever it might be, it's some kind of equation that has a y equals x squared in it. Will look like this. The red line is just to help us get that graph where it's supposed to be on the coordinate plane. So the red line is not part of the graph, it's not part of the function, it's just used as a guide. And it's one of the first things that you graph when you're trying to make a parabola. All right, and we did that by using the formula negative b over 2a, and we got the b and the a in that formula from the standard form of a quadratic, which is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so now that we found that line, the next thing we have to do is we have to figure out where the parabola goes through that line. And where it goes through that line is called the vertex. And the vertex is just an ordered pair. It's a point on the graph. For this picture, it happens to be the very bottom of the parabola. And it's where the parabola changes directions. So let's talk a little bit more about that. It's a point, again, on the graph where the function changes directions. I feel like I've already talked about this on the last video, but we'll talk about it again. And what we'll get to later is it is also becomes the maximum or the minimum of the function depending on what it looks like. So if the parabola looks like this, it's kind of flipped upside down from what we're used to seeing, then that vertex point right here will be considered the maximum value of the function. For obvious reasons, because maximum means the largest, and this is the highest point on the graph. However, when the graph goes the other direction, so when it looks like a U, and we'll talk about what makes them look these ways later. When it looks like a U, then that vertex point happens to be the minimum because it's the lowest point of the function. But what you'll notice in all of these pictures is this vertex point is always on the axis of symmetry because it's always in the center of the graph. So if we found the axis of symmetry, we've found half of the vertex. So let me explain what I mean by that. So how we're going to find the vertex is the first thing we're going to do is actually going to find the axis of symmetry. So a lot of the work you're going to do today is going to be, a little repetitive. It's going to be some of the same work you did yesterday, except you have an extra step now. So once you find that axis of symmetry, you're going to get x equals, and you're going to get some number for it. All right, that is the x coordinate of the vertex. So that is the x in the ordered pair for the vertex. Again, vertex, this little point right here on the graph, this ordered pair, we're trying to find that. When you find the axis of symmetry, x equals, and you find that number, that is the number in the ordered pair for the vertex. How do we find the y portion? We have to take the x and we have to plug it back into the function. So let me give you an example of that. We did these two examples yesterday, but I scribbled this vertex out and made it just find the axis of symmetry. So a lot of this is going to be, a little repeating what I did yesterday. But we're going to be using the negative b over 2a formula to find what the axis of symmetry is. So in this case, we have a negative b. Our b is 4, so that means we have a negative 4 on top. And we're dividing by 2 times a. And a is just 1. So this 2a is 2 times 1. So it's just a 2. So our axis of symmetry is the number negative 2. What does that mean? Well, that means if I want to roughly sketch this quick. Okay, this is a coordinate plane, x-axis, y-axis. The fact that our axis of symmetry is at negative 2, it means that the center of our graph is going to be over here at, the number negative 2. That's how you graph the line x equals negative 2. So it means, I don't know, so it means our graph's going to look like a U. All right, I don't know where that point is right now that I'm trying, this vertex down here at the bottom. I don't know where that's at. But I did just find part of it. So I know that its x coordinate is negative 2. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this negative 2 and I'm going to plug it back in. Oh my gosh, I can't write on this. I'm going to plug it back in for x in our equation. So what does that look like? Well, our function is y equals x squared And again, I'm plugging this -2 in for x. So I plug it in where I see an x. Our equation up here next is 4 times x. And again, I'm plugging -2 in for x. So I just have to plug it in twice. So I take that -2, and because there's two x's in my equation here, I'm going to have to plug it in twice, and I do. And then you can just use your graphing calculator from here. Make sure that you do put parentheses in the calculator when you're plugging these points in. So you should literally type it like you see it here. -2 squared is a +4, and then 4 times -2 is -8. So if I simplify this down, and I'm smart enough to do math in my head, then I would hopefully come up with the number -5. And what is that? That is y. All right, right, your equation was y equals, so this was all y equals. So right here at finding this number -2, that was our x coordinate. And what I just did down here to find y, that's our y coordinate. So this point, -2, -5, that's our vertex. That's where this point is at on the graph. Actually did a good job of drawing it. It is down there, actually. So that's it. So we found our vertex. So we do it again over here. Again, first thing is to use the axis of symmetry, the -b/2a. So we're going to put in 4 in for b and a 2 in for a. And so we'll get -4/4. So it looks like that's going to be a -1. Hopefully that's what I got the last time I did this. So we got a -1. So what does that mean? That means that in my vertex, the x coordinate is a -1. I just have to do a little bit more work, and I have to find what the y is. How do I do that? I plug that number, that -1, I plug it in for x in my equation. So my equation says y equals 2 times x squared. I'm going to plug this -1 in for my x. And then there's an x again. So I'm going to plug -1 in for that again. And then again, you can just plug all of this in the graphing calculator. Just when you do it, make sure you put parentheses around the number when you're substituting it in. So let's see what we get here. We get 2 times 1 out front. So this is going to end up being a 2 and a -4 and a -2. So it looks like that's going to get me the number -4. What's that? That is the y coordinate for the vertex. So right there's my vertex. The axis of symmetry finds the x for you, and then you have to plug that number back in to find the y. All right, so let's see what else we have here. 2 more examples. Let's try to do these quickly. Let's clear these objects on the screen. Let's try typing. It's a little bit cleaner. All right, so we're going to use our -b/2a again. So b is already negative. It's a -8. So when I do have a double negative, it's going to make it a +8. And then on the bottom of the formula, it's 2 times a, and a is 2. So it's 2 times 2 on the bottom, which is a 4. And then 8 divided by 4 is 2. Do be careful, all right? Because if I try to type all that in the calculator at once, 8 divided by 2 times 2, it's a really bad time symbol. And you type it just like this in the calculator, 8 divided by 2 times 2, you're going to get the wrong number. Sorry, let's go back. You're going to get the wrong number because your calculator is going to do order of operation. So it's going to do 8 divided by 2 first. You don't want that. You want to have the bottom number multiplied out, the 2 times a. You want to have that multiplied out first, and then take your 8 divided by your 4. So you can't type this all in the cap. I should quit. I should just quit right now. But I won't. So you can't type that in the calculator like that. Easiest way to do it would be take your calculator, find out what the bottom number is. So do 2 times a, find out what it is, write it down like I did, and then divide 8 by 4 at the end. Get 2. Then we're going to substitute 2 in to the equation. The equation says y equals, let's see if I can do exponents here, 2 x squared, and then again, x is 2. I'm plugging x in for, let's see here. Ooh, that worked well. Oh, no, it didn't. You're going to have to bear with me. This is going to be a rough couple weeks. Then I'm plugging, again, I'm still substituting. I found x was 2. I'm still substituting 2 in for x. So I'm replacing this x here with a 2. All right, so all I did was copy down the original equation, except I plugged a 2 in for x. And here's what I got. If you simplify a little bit, 2 squared is 4 out here, and then 4 times 2 is 8, so that first number is 8. And then 8 times 2 is 16, plus 3. Okay, and so when we simplify that, we should get, what, a negative 5? Should get negative 5. 8 minus 16 plus 3. So our vertex is, our x is a 2. We found that up here, finding the axis of symmetry. And our y, we just found, is a negative 5. Again, what does that mean? Well, that means if I had a graph, I would have first found out that my axis of symmetry is at 2. So I'd find out that the center of my graph is over here at 2, centered at that point. And then I also would have found out that my vertex is at 2, negative 5. So, if you graph that down here, 2, negative 5, I know that the shape of my graph, well, I don't really know, what I'm drawing right now. I don't know that it's over here, but I do know that it bottoms out at that point and turns back up. So I know its general shape looks like this. All right, and if you do remember from the Kahoot yesterday, that C is your y-intercept. All right, so I actually did a really terrible job drawing this. Let's go back. So that C is your y-intercept. So technically, it's going to cross the y-axis here. And if you remember, this is called the axis of symmetry, and symmetry means it's symmetrical. So if there's a point on the left side, and this is symmetrical, it means you would have to have a point over here to make it symmetrical. So, getting a little bit ahead of myself, this might be the next, what in the world? Well, then it's a pink parabola. So that's what it looks like. All right, I'm going to allow you guys to do number 2 on your own. So take a couple minutes now, do that on your notes. Again, make sure your b is in the formula is negative b, and then this b is also negative. So make sure that's all right. And then a is negative 1. So go ahead and finish that one out, and I will give you your answer in a couple of seconds. All right, so let's see how fast I can do this to give you your answer. Should be, oh my goodness. I'm trying. 6 over 2 times a, negative 2. So my axis of symmetry should be in negative 3. And when you plug that back in, you should get 3 squared is 9. 7? I think I got 7. If I'm wrong, please come down and harass me, but I don't think that's wrong. So looks good. I think that's going to be it. Let me check the next slide quick. This video is getting long. I don't want it to be too long. Yeah, that's like for another day. Not today. So that's it.